So welcome back to my channel. This is Dom and we're all stuck in these four walls. Well, not these four walls, because otherwise you'd be here with me. We're all stuck inside, not being able to get out and game like we usually do. And we want to get our little toy soldiers out and play with them, don't we? So how can we do it? Well, a lot of people are doing it online. So here's some lessons I've learned from doing games over Zoom that might help you if you're thinking about going that way. So let's check it out. So let me just play for you a quick video that shows the setup of how I have been running Zoom games. I've played 4 or 5 so far, and I've learnt as I've gone along. Kudos to Rich from Two Fat Lardies, who did a little video, podcast or stream actually, looking at how you should go about Zooming. And so I took a look at experience from there, but also put my own spin on it. So anyway, let's have a quick look and I'll show you sort of how it worked. So here we are in the bunker, just to show you how I've been zooming games basically. So the main thing is this iPad, which I've just got on a very cheap sort of holder thing, which is connected to a normal camera stand, making sure it's powered all the time because you don't want it running out. And that you can see I've got set up, we'll come back to this end, I've got it set up looking down the table, so you can see the entire table from here. I've got a couple of good lights, which are the ones I use normally, but that's just because this room's very dark. But for your audience, you need to make sure you've got enough light to be able to see what they're doing. Now, I'm trying out with one of these Geek Villain mats with the hidden hills, which is basically books underneath. We'll see how well it comes out on Zoom. So that's the main sort of view that the player gets down the table from that iPad. And then I've got my phone set up on a tripod that I can basically move around the table, and I've logged in on both devices to the Zoom call, so that basically I can move the camera to position it behind troops to show the view and what have you, and give a better view from other parts of the table. So you can see there from that game, or that setup, that you're going to need a few bits and bobs. It's not as straightforward as just suddenly getting up and running. You need to do a little bit of prep work. So I thought I'd take you through the 7 steps on how to be a bit more effective with Zoom, in particular to game online, and just help your process in transition, if you're thinking about doing it, to be a little bit easier. So let's take a look. So first up, I'm going to say keep it simple. It may sound obvious, but if you sit down and decide to plan out a game and you have thousands and thousands of figures across, multiple brigades and what have you, it can be a little bit overbearing. First of all, especially when you're just starting out. So my advice is always keep it as simple as you possibly can and don't be too ambitious. So keep the forces small, keep the player numbers reasonably small until you know what you're doing. And that will make your life so much easier. The other thing, number 2, is to play appropriate rule systems. I've been playing a lot of sharp practice. Bolt action works well. I think black powder works well. I think a rule system that allows you to there's not too much going on at one time, or in the case of shot practice, it's someone draws a card, it's that unit that operates and that unit that moves. In the case of bolt action, similar process. Your dice comes out the bag, you decide, that player does his activity and moves on. Black powder, it's going to be brigade by brigade by brigade, so it's a lot easier. So I think playing the right rule system. We were looking at how you can play muskets and tomahawks, for instance, because the beauty of that system is you draw 3 cards and it's up to the player to decide which of those 3 cards to play. Can't really do that over Zoom. The only way to do it, I think, is to have somebody who's permanently set up running the cards, which kind of means they can't play. So I think playing the appropriate rule system is really, really important, and have a think about how the mechanics would work. Don't be afraid to share the load. So somebody's got to host the game, and that involves running around the table, moving the figures, doing all the measurements, letting people see what they can see, etc, etc, etc. But doesn't mean that somebody else can't do some work for you. So in the case of sharp practice games, I get one of the players to turn the cards or pull the chits to nominate who's active next. Similarly, when it comes down to rolling the dice, I let the players roll the dice and tell me the result, because partly that's because it gives them something to do and they're not just sitting completely remotely, but it also means that that I don't have to do everything, which I think, you know, it helps with the experience and the fun of the game for them. So share the workload as much as you possibly can. You've still got to do the workload of running around the table moving the figures, so let them do something to help out. One of the other things one of my buddies does a lot is when we're playing a game, he will actually have in front of him various units to conform to the army that he's supposed to be playing with, and then he will mark them with fatigues or casualties or what have you, so he knows what they're suffering. And that also helps, because sometimes if I've forgotten to mark something, or he's not sure, you know, it's very clear because he's got a setup and I've got a setup, and that works. So I have at least 2 cameras. You saw from the setup that I used, I have one looking down the table, which gives the players a consistent, constant view, and they can have that up on their Zoom, you know, on the end there watching. And then I also have another camera which is at the other end of the table, which is my phone, and that I can also move around the table if I need to show the views and perspectives for various troop setups. In an ideal world I'd like to have 3, and I'm sort of investigating how I might do that, but 2 is a minimum, I think, to make it work. I think 1 would just give you, there's always going to be black spots with the terrain, you know, which things can get hidden behind. So, which is another thing on the simple thing, keeping it simple, making sure that you don't put too much terrain out, because that will hide the troops, right? It's hard to actually see what you're doing. You might want to think about also playing on a light coloured mat. It doesn't have to be sandy or anything else like that, but you know, really dark mats with troops that are dark hidden on it is a little bit hard to see for the viewer. So you might want to think about compromises in terms of the mat or the board that you're playing on. Likewise the figures. That game I showed you set up where I had a snow mat down looked really good, but then of course I put out my Latvians who are all in white camo. It was quite hard to see them. The camo worked, so you need to think things through like that. You're going to need plenty of light. Light is vital. If you're lucky and you're doing it in a room that's really bright, then you probably don't need any extra light. But as again you saw from mine, I have 2 sort of studio photographic lights that I bought some time ago, which help the process and they make it look a lot brighter, and that, you know, all will help with the viewer experience. The final thing that people aren't going to like, I'm afraid, is a Zoom Premium. Now, standard Zoom will only give you 40 minutes for free. And I don't know about you guys, but more than not, my games run more than 40 minutes. So you could set it up so there's a repeat scheduled meeting, but then everyone have to log out and log back in. So you might want to look into buying premium Zoom. It's not that cheap. It's about £120 a year, something like that, for the basic premium version, which gives you all you're ever going to need. Now, 120 sounds a lot, and it is a lot, but if you can divide that amongst 5-6 players, it's a little bit more manageable. And as somebody once said to me, somebody said to me, you know, if you're going to own your club, it's going to cost you 3 or 4 or 5 quid a night to play. So just think of this as the same kind of premium that you're playing for Zoom. So yeah, I'm afraid you're going to need to invest if you're going to do this. But I think it's worth it if you want to get some game time in. And I've played, say, 4 or 5 games now over Zoom, and it's been great fun. It's not the same as proper gaming, but it's gaming, and for the last year I'll take that. So what does it look like for the gamer? Well, I'm going to show you, this is a video that my mate Graham recorded from the Zoom onto his PC, so it's not as clear as the actual view, but it gives you a good idea about what you can see and how the player experiences. So this was a game we played of Sharp Practice, American War of Independence, and you can see the view from here, that you can see the force morale chart down here, the figures lined up. Let me play a little bit of this.
I moved these guys down to cover the line and fired at him ineffectively. He fired back ineffectively, and then they fired at Death Star, as you saw. That would be rather easy for him, wouldn't it? Yeah. Right then, sir.
So this is another view from the second camera. You can see Jonathan's lovely face there on the on the camera, on the iPad, looking down from the first camera view. So again, you give a different perspective. So, and the Zoom user, of course, can switch between the different views. So as I say, if I manage to work out how I can find another internet enabled device, I would set up a third camera so that it was one permanently set up at each end, and then another one that I can move around as I needed to.
Oh, for goodness sake.
So that's the very first. Have you got a player who's knocked down, Alex?
Alex is down. Yeah, 7 with the officer.
So within 12. So it's going to be freeze then, isn't it?
Freeze. Okay.
Fired already. Here we go. Oh, shit! I missed. Only 4.
4 hits, Jonathan, on your
5s and 6s. Excellent idea, Dom.
But I would suggest that we get back into the bordello and defend that with our lives.
I think there was a couple of English blokes in there. Well,
there are
rebels in there anyway.
Rebels. We should go and arrest them. So do you want to roll 1 dice?
Yeah. Here we go. 4.
4.
So there you go. That's how it works. So this picture on the YouTube download is actually not as good as the real Zoom picture, but it gives you an idea of what you can see in here, and you can have that interaction, that buzz, that bit of banter that goes on between the players, which is kind of a lot of fun. And you can see my massive great beer belly, which is even better. Anyway, hope you found it useful. That was my thoughts on an experience on using Zoom to stream some games with some buddies. Say it's not real gaming, it's not gaming, but it's the gaming we have at the moment to do. And I'm sure you could use other systems as well. It's just, this is how I found Zoom works, and it works pretty well. I think Discord, you can use Discord, but then you need to. Yeah, I mean Discord's okay as well, but I find Discord very flaky. You could use Skype, I guess, as well. I'm not sure how you would manage multiple people. I guess you just set up multiple accounts, that sort of multiple links for people to join in on. But Zoom is very, very flexible, and I think most people have Zoom. And if you've got a very understanding employee, you might even be able to use your corporate account and not have to pay for it. So there you go. Hope you found it useful. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and let me know in the description down below what it is you have, what your experiences of Zoom gaming or remote gaming during this period. Any tips you can give, anything I've missed that you think people should be aware of. Love to know. Please put it down below. I've also put a link in the description for that iPad holder, which you can see which one I used. So it was, I can't remember, about 7 or 8 quid, something like that. It wasn't expensive, and then it just sits on top of a normal camera tripod. Very easy to use. So anyway, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you again soon. This is Dom signing out.